disappointed in the loss, obviously, against Troy, but still got a ton of games ahead of us. Got to move forward. Just got done with practice. Had a really good practice. But we got to be better. You know, we had 18 offensive rebounds against UL Monroe, and then we gave up 18, and that's not something that I would like to have happen ever. But we got to learn from it. Get back to the drawing board. We'll watch film. We'll watch film again this evening, and get ready for Texas State.
After reviewing those two games, I mean, obviously, the South Out game, you were frustrated because you kind of felt like you gave it away. But when you look at the Troy game, do you kind of say, look, they're a good team, they played great? Or how do you, and that was one where you just got to give credit to the other team, or do you not look at it?
I don't look at it that way. I mean, yeah, obviously you give credit whether you lose by 20 or about 4. You always give credit, to the other team when they come in and do the job that they did to win the game, So, points don't matter, and it doesn't matter how good of a team they are. And you got it, my hat's off to them. They got an experienced veteran team that some of those guys have played in the NCAA tournament. But, I expect to win every game. Any game that we play, I expect to win, despite injuries does not matter. When we go out there, it's next man up mentality, and our guys got to be ready to play. And I didn't think we were ready to play in that game, especially from the beginning. They got it going right there at the beginning with the offensive rebound and how aggressive they were on the glass. And we just didn't do a good enough job, and that's on me.
What is that? Talk about it's a little unique for us. The noon Saturday games. What goes into that?
Well, talking as a staff, just like to try and get as many of our fans out as we possibly can here, just listening to the way things were in the past. And, I like to, be as, open, to what's best for the program and what's best for the city and the people in Lafayette and people in surrounding areas, Baton Rouge, Lake Charles, that are UL fans, So, that's kind of what went into it. And, but again, you don't make any excuses whether you play at 7:30 or noon. And the other thing is, me playing in the tournament, and I expect to play in the tournament while I'm here, right? And so some games you're going to play at 11:30. You got an 11:30 start. Some as early as maybe 10:30. Depending upon where the game is being played. So, I think all those games, all those things prepare you for the future. And so that's kind of what went into it.
Does it change the preparation at all or not really?
No, it doesn't change the preparation. I mean, the only difference is when, you playing so early like that, you got to be careful about making sure you're doing the right things with the guys in terms of rest. So you might not go as long, on the floor. It may be more film, and so you just got to be mindful of those things.
You talked about those offensive rebounds and so forth. Your guys have done a good job the last several games, and really most of the season. I think 4 of the last 6 games, you gave up single-digit offensive rebounds. Was it something Troy was doing, something your guys maybe weren't doing that contributed to that, or was it just if you take a lot of long-range shots, you're going to get a long-range rebounds?
Yeah, no, Troy is one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league, and I would say in the country. I mean, last year those guys were, when we played against them at Houston, they were like number 4 or 5 in the country, not just in the league. And so that's something that Coach Cross preaches every day to his team, and they do a really good job. And so we didn't do a good job of keeping them off the glass. We knew going in that they were a really good offensive rebounding team, but we got to be better as a staff. I have to be better, and the players have to be better as well.
You talked a little bit about it on Saturday. If guys aren't doing what they need to, you let the bench kind of do the talking. What is kind of the balance of, coaching guys in that moment of that lesson, or also trying to develop them to do what you want them to do so you can have depth to be able to play?
Yeah, you develop guys not just in practice but in the game. Right there at the end, that was a good moment, for Mike. Mike Collins. He played extended minutes for the first time in this season, and he did pretty good. And so you develop guys in practice, individuals, and inside of the game. But the only way you get to stay in the game, game and practice is a little bit different. Practice, I get to run you and hold you accountable, and you understand what the culture is. In games, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then that's going to dictate how many minutes you play.
I also noticed this thing kind of just from watching in the game. If you call for a player on the bench and they don't answer kind of immediately to you, you may pivot to someone else's. That kind of building into that culture of like, I need everyone engaged and be leaning into the game, when it's going on.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes those guys, depending on where they're sitting on the bench, the spot that they're sitting in, they may not hear me. And so the coaching staff would then have to get their attention and things like that. So I don't want to say the guys weren't, engaged or paying attention. I think every last one of those guys are engaged. Now, when they get in the game, it's time to, impact winning. And so if you're not doing that, then you're going to be sitting on that bench right next to the coaching staff. So, and that's all a part of, building a program, man. These things take time, and we've been hit with what we've been hit with. And these guys have, for the most part, been resilient. It just haven't added, up on the scoreboard in terms of wins, and all that takes time. But, if you walked in that practice gym and watched those guys practice the last 2 hours, you couldn't tell that these guys are just coming off a loss, and that gives us a chance every single time.
When you give up, like Troy made a ton of threes the other night, when you guys go back, how much of it do you, look at from your side, maybe closing out better versus them, just making some shots throughout the game?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing was keeping them off the glass, right? And so when you give a team like that second and third chance opportunities, it's hard to stop them. But they did a really good job of moving the ball. That comes from chemistry, experience, and playing together. And let's give Coach Cross and his staff some credit. Them guys are well coached. But again, they know each other. And they do an absolute great job of being unselfish. And so you look at a team like that, and you learn. I told our guys that, we can learn from a team like that that's been playing together and played in the NCAA tournament where we want to go. And this is how you get better. You do a good job of moving the ball. And we've already done a pretty decent job of rebounding, right? And so let's learn from the team that we just lost to. And so you move forward, but that's what they did a good job of.
You've had double-digit three-pointers made a lot in the last 6 games. I think it's 5 times. A lot of those games are at home. What about transferring that on the road with that kind of shooting from the front?
Yeah, our guys in there working right now in our practice gym, and so I think that'll continue. Whether we playing at home or on the road, I think all the work that you put in from the summer up until now, that should translate, and guys are playing with more confidence offensively. The last 2 games, I mean, we scored 70 points on Troy, scored 85 on UL Monroe. It's the defense that's been suffering, right? And so we got to find a balance, Let's continue to score that ball like we've been scoring it, but now our defense has been slacking. And so we got to be more connected. I thought we got spread out a bunch, in the game against Troy, and then, our effort and intensity defensively, and not only the Troy game, but UL Monroe wasn't consistent. So we got to get back to defending, and that's what we did today.
What did the matchups look like for you this weekend? I'm sure you know more about that in a couple of days, but what did they look like?
Texas State is deep. It's a deep basketball club, well coached. Coach Johnson and I, we go back, from, elementary school. I've been knowing him. He's a family friend of mine for a very long time. He's done a really good job at Texas State, and they got a deep club that is experienced, talented. The kid Drone, I think he's leading them in scoring. He can score the ball at all 3 levels. And it's just another challenge. It's every night, and I love it. It's every night in this league, in a lot of ways, it's no different than the Big 12. The only difference is the talent level, right? But still, you got some really good players in this league, and it's an every night deal. And so, we'll be ready. This team is good offensively. They like to get up the floor in transition. They moved the ball really well, similar to Troy. And so I think the Troy game, learning from that game, will help prepare us for this one.
When y'all haven't played good transition defense, I don't think y'all had an overly heavy transition schedule, but when y'all haven't played good transition defense, what's the issue that y'all got to make sure didn't happen?
We got to, get back with a sense of urgency and do, I talk to our guys about purposeful communication. It's not just pointing, it's communicating and saying who you have in transition over and over and over again. And you need all 5 guys talking, and that's one of the things we went over today at practice. We may have spent 15, 20 minutes just on transition defense. And you're constantly improving. You're going to have slippage throughout the year. Some games we were better in transition defense than others, but you're constantly trying to improve, and how you improve is to continue to work on it.